Story 1. Playing with the neighborhood children and making up games as we went along. Occasionally, we played Xbox, but we were mainly outside using our imagination. Story 2. My best friend and I are riding our bikes to the town library, filling our bike baskets with books, and then going to a nearby store to get candy, like those multicolored sugar buttons on strips of paper. Back home, we lounge on the grass under a shady tree and read Nancy Drew mysteries, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and Andrew Lang fairy tales with beautiful Arthur Rackham illustrations. Later, we play with our Barbie dolls until our moms tell us to get in the car because we are going to get fresh corn from the local farm stand. Story 3. Ride my bicycle around the neighborhood in the morning, then have a couple of friends over to go swimming. Finish the day with some more bicycle riding or playing outside. Story 4. Running in and out of the house to drink Kool-Aid, to change shoes, to eat a bologna sandwich, to watch my favorite show, to fight with siblings. Riding bikes, playing with dolls, hopscotch, going to the corner store for penny candy, waiting for Mr. Softy, and for fireflies to come out. Story 5. Take the BMX, Schwinn or Huffy bike, find some cinder blocks and plywood to make a rickety ramp, and do some exciting jumps with the neighborhood kids. Story 6. In 1997 to 1998, we got a console and played Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Bomberman, and tanks. If we were forced to go outside, we would get onto our bikes and gather all our buddies to explore somewhere. P.S. The time limit was before dawn or until one of our parents yelled. Story 7. Sandbox, sprinkler, frozen treats, toys, and repeat. Maybe some homemade popcorn and a thunderstorm in the evening if I am lucky. Story 8. I spent the summers with my grandparents. I would wake up and eat cereal while reading the newspaper comics. I pretended to help my grandpa with the crosswords. I swam until lunch. I ate a ham and turkey sandwich with chips. I helped grandma peel potatoes, break the ends off green beans, and shuck corn. I swam until dinner. Sometimes we went to the library or recreation center. It may sound boring, but these are some of my fondest memories. Story 9. Outside riding my bike and getting into mischief with my friends. I grew up in the 1970s and had a great childhood. Story 10. Had a single parent who worked from 6:30 a.m. to midnight, but she got us multiple movies from Blockbuster and snacks, including a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. I'd wake up at 7 a.m., watch Good Morning America until 9 a.m., eat cereal, then head outside with my bike until sunset. Usually, I explored the apartment complex with other friends, played inside their houses, found stray kittens, and rode to the 7-Eleven to buy snacks. At sunset, I'd come home, watch the movies Mom got us, eat Kentucky Fried Chicken, and play Nintendo until she got home. Life was good. Story 11. I moved schools and houses when I was about 11 years old. It was the best summer ever. We would ride bikes everywhere, the community pool, the convenience store, the lake a couple of miles from us to fish. We would drag old tarps from the garage, soap them up, and make huge slip-and slides. We played capture the flag in the woods behind our neighborhood, and one kid's dad installed a zip line in the yard. Story 12. I was in daycare, spending time with a group of young children and playing outside frequently. I also ate Kraft mac and cheese often enough to never want to eat it again. Story 13. It would be 1986. I would ride my bicycle for most of the day, probably watch music television, and dream about being a teenager. I would read some of my mom's books that definitely were not age appropriate. Being 10 sounds awesome. Story 14. Exploring the woods and swimming in the slough are activities a 10-year-old really should not do alone. Story 15. It is 1990. I lived in the middle of nowhere. I was very bored. Both my parents worked, so I was left alone during the day. There was no internet and only 3 television channels. I had no friends to hang out with because of where I lived. There was an age gap with my siblings, so they were not around. I just existed. The highlight of my summer was once a month when my mother worked a Saturday shift in town. I would load up my bike and get to do all the things people usually talk about. Story 16. Spending time with my grandparents because my mother would be working summer school. We usually went to the mall or the swimming pool. Story 17. Digging in the dirt. Playing with toy soldiers. Climbing trees. playing games such as Baby in the Air, Tag, Sardines, and others with neighbors, reading books and comic books alone and with a friend, walking to the library, playing pretend with neighbors and friends, whining, "I'm bored." We had no television. Story 18. Wait, I've done this. Reading The Babysitter's Club, Louisa May Alcott, and Gail Carson Levine obsessively. Swimming every day at the local pool. Softball practice twice a week. Girl Scouts once a week. Practicing and putting on concerts with my little sister for my parents. Playing Super Nintendo games. Watching my brother play lots of Super Nintendo games. Running around local playgrounds. Riding my bike around the neighborhood. Spending a lot of time with my sister and mom. Trips to the Museum of Natural History. Weekly movie nights. Story 19. Playing outside with my brother, and during lunch, we fought over the television remote. We settled that with our old advertisement rule. If one puts on a show or movie and an advertisement comes on, the other gets the remote. I miss him. Story 20. Well, back in the 1900s when I was 10 and actually lived summer without smartphones. Ride a bike or bus to a friend's house and spend the afternoon eating junk food, watching TV and gossiping. Read fashion and gossip magazines and cut them up to make collages. Organize a day at the community pool and get as many other 10-year-olds to come along. Do puzzle books. Make bracelets. Rummage through my closet. Organize clothes. And plan my fall aesthetics. Organize a movie day at the theater and get as many 10-year-olds to come along. Not being Tessan. Meet a friend at McDonald's. Get as many fries as I can afford. And walk across the street to the beach to spend hours there eating McDonald's fries. Bonus. Extra money for a cone after. Story 21. You take a soda can and bend it over the back wheel of your bicycle, riding around the neighborhood sounding like a dirt bike. Then get your friends to join you and form a motorcycle sounding group. Story 22. Making jumps for our bicycles, catching frogs down the canals, sneaking out and seeing what the world looks like at 3 a.m. Story 23. Waking up around 9 when my older sister throws a shoe at me to tell me to lock the front door as she leaves for summer school. Baking a Mama Rosa pizza for brunch, trying to beat that difficult cloud level on Super Mario 2, and then taking off on my bike into the neighborhood right before my parents get home. After some random shenanigans like trying to ride around the whole block with my buddy on a skateboard, we would scrape together 75 cents for a large fountain drink at the liquor store or a burrito to share from Taco Bell, drink water from hoses at houses we knew. Then I would pedal back to the house when the lights came on to eat dinner while my mom talked on the phone and watch Unsolved Mysteries while my dad slept in the recliner. I would try one more time to beat that difficult cloud level before rage quitting and passing out listening to Art Laboe on my multi-compact disc changer boombox. The good old days. Story 24. Running after my chickens at my grandparents' house, maybe making a homemade slip and slide. Waiting at the front door for both the ice cream truck and the Mexican sweetbread van. Story 25. Playing outside in the orange grove, riding bicycles off ramps, balancing on giant wire spools, and catching love bugs. Story 26. Get up, have breakfast, wash and dress, then go outside to play with the neighborhood girls. Hopscotch, jump rope, bicycle riding, just what all children did in the 1950s. Story 27. That was the summer of 1996. Going on adventures outside with friends with no smartphone distractions for most of the day until the sun set. Then playing my Super Nintendo Entertainment System and Sega Genesis while excitedly awaiting the Nintendo 64 to be released in a few months. Also, watching the Monday Night War every Monday night and talking with friends about how shocking it was for Hulk Hogan to join the New World Order and who would be next. Plus, thank God it's Friday followed by Monster Vision on Friday nights, and Saturday Night Nickelodeon on Saturday nights. Story 28. Sitting alone in my room, being quiet by reading a book, and hoping not to get yelled at for something I did or did not do. Story 29. Telling my parents I am going to a friend's house, but in reality, I will be meeting the same friend in the woods next to a dangerous river. We will be building a campfire and a shelter and having fun. I usually did some risky things that could have gotten me killed and had a great time doing it. Story 30. Playing outside with my sister and cousins until dark or spending the day at my parents' lake lot. I miss having endless free days. Story 31. Staying at my grandmother's house, as both my parents worked. My brother and I played outside in the woods behind her house and rode bikes on her large driveway, maybe jumped in the pool. Grandmother made us some dirty rice or jambalaya for lunch. I never realized how good we had it. Story 32. When I was 10, I stayed with my father during the summer. A typical day started with getting up mid-morning while my father was already at work. I would read a Stephen King novel or a movie adaptation from the library, as I loved those when I was a child. Sometimes, I went over to the neighbor's house to plan a bicycle adventure with my best friend. Other times, we explored the woods behind our houses and built a lean-to next to the creek. In the afternoon, we watched Chicago Cubs baseball on the television station WGN. In the early evening, we played wiffle ball among the lightning bugs. If possible, we convinced her older brothers to play with us. Otherwise, we played with imaginary players on base. We ate at some point, but I do not remember what or when. Story 33. Going into the woods to the creek to look for tadpoles. Then heading home to throw some frisbee with my cousin. After that, going to Steve's house to gather the rest of the group for some kickball in the street. Returning home when the street lights come on. Story 34. My little brother and I are going out to the trails behind the school near our house to see what kind of fun and trouble we can find. We will fight with other neighborhood kids, wade through the creek looking for critters, climb trees, and come up with new adventures and ways to have fun. Story 35. My brother and I are getting out our fishing poles and tackle box, putting shorts and t-shirts over our swimsuits, calling our old Labrador, Phoebe, and walking down the tree-lined lane to the river to spend all day fishing and swimming. Story 36. I spent that summer with both of my arms broken from crashing my bike. I did a lot of sleeping, reading, some playing in the backyard, and spent time with my cat. I also played some Dungeons and Dragons and Magic: The Gathering. Story 37. Hiding from my brothers in the back 40, building tree forts, fishing, capturing frogs, eating all the nuts, berries, fruits, and vegetables that grow out there. I will even capture a medium-sized snapping turtle for dinner. Story 38. Swimming at the city pool all day. Dad picks me up, and we eat dinner, probably a kid's cuisine. Then we head to the playground in the evening to run around and climb trees with friends. Peaked at 10. Story 39. Wake up when we want. Me and two younger sisters head downstairs for cereal or maybe eggs and fried potatoes. Start up the Super Nintendo for a few hours and let Mom drink coffee and wake up. Finally decide to go to the beach. We follow Mom on our bikes. Lay in the sun on blankets all day, swim in the water, wear ourselves out, eat chips and soda from the corner store. Ride home, pick up the Nintendo controller, let Mom cook, and hang out at the kitchen table to keep her company. Then head to the TV and watch a movie together. Back then, it was just about being together. Story 40. This gives me nostalgia. I remember watching cartoons on our old television, like those huge box ones. When the signal went off, you just hit it from above to make it work again. Those DVDs too. I don't know why we owned a lot, but I watched them, mostly movies and cartoons. I also miss my normal sleep schedule back then. Like when your mom forces you to take a nap in the afternoon and tells you it will help you grow. Now I'm an insomniac, having problems sleeping. I also had some playmates before, my neighbors. I miss them. I hope they are doing well now. I remember there was a time when it was summer break, no school and all. My mom and I would walk to the beach some mornings. We lived near one back then. It was fun, and I miss bonding with her. It's not like it used to be now. I want to be a kid again. Story 41. Just outdoors having fun. My parents would have no idea where I was from the moment I left until after dark. I could have been next door or 10 to 15 miles away on my bike. Story 42. Definitely playing outside, probably riding my bicycle or playing make-believe games with my siblings or neighborhood children. I also attended many summer camps and library activities. The good old days, 2005. Story 43. At camp during the day, then chill at home once my parents pick me up. On weekends, I might hang out with some cousins and friends. Story 44. Swimming in the pool and jumping on the biggest trampoline a child owns in my class because this was when my father was still working and bought us lots of cool things. Yes, my friends always wanted to come over precisely for the pool and the trampoline. Story 45. When I was 10, I built things with electronics or went out looking for dumpsters with junk electronics in them. I would probably be doing that again. Story 46. Running up and down the block with the other kids outside until the sun goes down or my head starts pounding. Story 47. Going out on my grandpa's boat all day to swim and play with my brother and the other lake kids. Then coming home to shower and nap before grandma starts making dinner. Hopefully something on the grill with a side of sweet corn on the cob, vegetables from the garden, and a big glass of raspberry drink. Then firing up the PlayStation 2 for a few hours while the adults talk and drink on the porch. We spent every summer with my grandparents in rural southern Wisconsin, and I would give everything to have one last weekend at the lake. Story 48. Filling water balloons until the hose got too hot to touch. Strategic strikes equal backyard domination. Story 49. Riding my bike around my small development. Setting fire to the fields on the far end. Falling out of a tree that I was not supposed to be climbing, lying about it, and more than likely getting a mild traumatic brain injury. Story 50. Watching television. I was not fond of playing outside, but maybe I would go sometime with my sister and our neighbor. Story 51. Setting up tents in my friend's yard and playing or trading Pokemon cards. I had a first edition Japanese Mew back in the day. Story 52. Reading, playing with toys outside, exploring the woods, exploring old houses in the woods, taking items from old houses in the woods, playing basketball, playing kickball, playing baseball with ghost runners. Story 53. Wake up around 10 a.m., eat a big bowl of Reese's Puffs, meet with neighborhood friends at the nearby field and dig a hole for no reason, ride bikes to Subway, get a Slurpee, toss the football, shower, and have dinner with the family. Then play Xbox until 1 a.m. repeat. Story 54. When I was 10, I was outside almost all day, every day, except to cool off inside by playing alone in my room with dolls. Story 55. Probably asking my parents if I could spend some time at the park with them and then go for a family swim at my local gym in the afternoon or evening. Man, how I wish I was 10 again. Story 56. Reading. Riding my bike around the neighborhood. Hanging out with the other kids on the street. Going down to the vacant lot and making bike ramps. More reading. If my parents let me use the computer, playing games. At least that is what I did as a 10-year-old. Story 57. It's 2008 for me. I would either turn on the television and watch the golden age of Cartoon Network, go out with my friends and play football at the beach, or, to make things even cooler and nostalgic, call them up to my house so we could watch some Cartoon Network in the afternoon or even play some PlayStation during Christmas time. Growing up in the 2000s was magical. Story 58. Tennis, roller skating, horseback riding, video games at the arcade, then a hamburger, the video store, watching a movie, a few phone calls with friends, then I played pool. Story 59. I am going crabbing, then a trip to the bait store to sell the crabs for a candy bar and soda. After that, I will go swimming or maybe play a soccer game instead. Story 60. Grab my best friend and book it to the community swimming pool. Swim for hours, jump off the high dive 5 times, making goofy hand gestures and poses on the way down. Go to her house down the block for root beer popsicles and watch the banana splits and the monkeys. Walk home and go for a ride in the back of my dad's Ford F-150 pickup to 7-Eleven for a Slurpee and some wacky packages stickers. Story 61. Playing with my guinea pigs, biking the course in the forest at the park, reading books, and playing multi-user dungeons online. Story 62. It did not matter if it was summer, winter, or monsoon. We just went out and played cricket, whether it was a holiday, a break, or an evening. Story 63. Playing outside, exploring the woods at the end of my street, trying not to get robbed by troublemakers, planning sleepovers, building dens, and jumping out of trees. Story 64. All the answers provided show how joyous childhood is. Doing things for pure joy with little worries in our minds. When did we lose that in our adulthood? Story 65. I was playing outside and I did not have smartphones. Actually, in the summer when I was 10, I was at my aunt's beach house with my cousins. We would go to the beach every day and eat ice cream on the way back. In the afternoon, I would play with the neighbors' kids, and I think that summer I was mostly playing board games. Story 66. Go hang out with my grandparents who live one house over. Then head to the school's open playground with the other neighborhood kids. Story 67. Riding bicycles, shooting BB guns, playing baseball, swimming, fishing, or at least working on the farm putting up hay or something similar. Story 68. It is 1998. Sleeping in, watching Nickelodeon, eating frozen pizza, riding bicycles with my friends, going to the pool, playing with my dogs and cats, and reading some good books. Story 69. We had to have some plumbing redone, which involved digging a trench in the backyard to expose the pipes that led to the water main. Back then, pipes were often made of ceramic rather than polyvinyl chloride and eventually had to be replaced. Roots and weeds are the mortal enemies of ceramic pipes. As a result, there was an enormous pile of scooped-out dirt next to the trench. We children played in that pile for weeks, and on the day they had to fill the trench back up, I still remember the feeling of disappointment. My mother used to jokingly call us Niños de la Tierra, which means children of the dirt or children of the earth, but is also the name for the Jerusalem cricket, also known as the potato bug. Story 70. I go for a walk in the woods up the hill, and my Siamese cat comes along too. We sit on the big rocks and quietly become part of nature. Eventually, we make our way back home, back inside the house for dinner. I cannot understand why my parents keep the house so cold. Tomorrow I might go play Red Rover or crawl in the storm drain pipes with friends. Story 71. Play all day every day. Watch cartoons on television. See how much money I have to buy as many sugary treats as possible. Story 72. Try getting into my extremely cold pool that is just a cheap blow-up one, only to be in it for less than 5 minutes. Then go ask my neighbor to play outside. Story 73. Probably weeding the garden and then playing in the pool with friends. Then we will bike up to the store across the highway and load up on gum, 1-cent candies, and a glass bottle of soda. On our walk back, we will likely put a penny on the track before the train gets close. Then we will wave to the conductor and count how many cars there are. On the train, we might catch a small snake or a soda bottle full of grasshoppers. We will probably stop by my friend's house so they can tell their mom they are at my house swimming and drop off our garbage. Their mom might give us some of the cookies she just made or a frozen ice pop. We definitely will walk through every sprinkler in our path. Then we will head out to the field and continue digging our pit fort. We might even burn a little grass in the fire pit or pretend to smoke dry snake grass. Then we will bike back to my house and have fresh tomato sandwiches with potato chips and watermelon. We might stay inside for about 30 minutes to grab some toys to take outside. We might play badminton until we can go back in the pool. We will then take turns on the diving board pretending to enter the door and say, "Ah, there is no floor." Our towels will have been baking on the patio, so when we lay down to dry off, we will just hang out on the patio in the heat, listening to our little transistor radio, hoping one of our favorite songs will come on. Story 74. If I am being honest about my summer as a 10-year-old in 1985, I mostly watched television or played the occasional Commodore VIC-20 game, which was the only device we had that played games. I also went shopping with my mother. I think I went to a friend's house a couple of times that summer, but I wish I had been much more social than I actually was. Story 75. Being a menace like Dennis with the friends on our bikes, just having fun outside before the streetlights come on. Story 76. It is the 1980s. I am riding my bike everywhere, including the local racetrack where I raced. Then I come home starving because all I had was a bowl of Fruity Pebbles or Captain Crunch 9 hours ago. Story 77. So that makes it 1982. I was outside wearing flip-flops, or maybe barefoot. Flip-flops were what we called thongs back in the day. I was not allowed to come in the house unless it was to use the bathroom. We played all day in the backyard and neighborhood with friends, and it was awesome. I think that was the year I managed to cut the top of my big toe off playing blind man's bluff. Story 78. Going to my friend's house and asking their parents if I can come outside to play with them. We are going to get some chalk, draw all over the street, and maybe ask our parents for a few euros to buy some sweets and ice cream. Then we will go to the playground we were not allowed to go to because it was too far away, about a 10-minute walk. We will play there and then get scared because the streetlights turn on and we are supposed to be home now. Story 79. Bikes outside all day, corner store for Slurpees and 5-cent candies, hanging in the inflatable pool, listening to cassette tapes, Pokemon cards, neighborhood adventures, visiting Blockbuster for Nintendo 64 games and VHS tapes, sleepovers with friends or movies with family. I miss it. Story 80. Exploring every inch of forest behind my parents' house, building several tree houses and starting a war against the children from next door. Story 81. I was living in Las Vegas at that time and going to school in Clark County. I would most likely be going to school, or we would be inside watching public broadcasting service or going to the pool. Most of the neighbor kids were gone, and Las Vegas is very hot in the summer, so there was not much to do outside. Story 82. Playing Spyro on PlayStation 1. Still gaming back then. Smartphones were not even around for another 7 or so years. Story 83. Playing outside with friends. Finishing books I got from the library. Watching Disney Channel marathons. Fun fact, I was 10 years old before the first smartphones came out. So much has changed over the years. Story 84. I would be sitting on the couch watching a cartoon on TV and drawing on a piece of paper while my mom made some sweet porridge. Story 85. Playing outside, reading a book, practicing tennis, riding my bike around, and loving every second of it. Story 86. I am 50 years old, and I have a job and a family to focus on. Reading all these comments pulls me completely out of who I am right now and fills me with an ache to be back there. Story 87. My friends and I from my neighborhood called ourselves Torsha. We would head to the hills behind the village to eat cherries straight from the trees, dig up a stash of old magazines someone had hidden, play endless football matches, read comics at each other's houses, and copy anime VHS tapes, convinced that was how we would get rich one day. Story 88. Play outside in the woods, play in the creek or with the water hose, swim in the inflatable pool, and make clubhouses in the woods. My favorite part of my childhood. Story 89. Walking to 7-Eleven with my best friend for a Slurpee, telling another kid on the street that their skin is showing, and dreaming of a money-making venture so I can buy more pizza. Story 90. Playing in the woods and fields with James, sometimes Earl, and occasionally Charlene. We might watch cartoons after lunch. Story 91. Riding my bike all over Odessa, pulling a wagon to collect empty bottles so I can save enough money to get candy, a Dr. Pepper, and comic books. Story 92. This is not just about spending all day, but various activities we do during summer. I spent my summer vacation at my grandparents' home for 3 months. I played with my cousins and neighborhood children, climbed trees and mountains to pick fruits, went to rice fields to harvest crops, fed the chickens and goats, cleaned our room, swam in the nearby river or went to the beach, watched the elders with whatever they were doing, biked around, went on long walks with everyone else, helped prepare the meals, hung our clothes to dry, shared ghost stories with the kids, went from one house to the next just to eat different snacks, went to church in the plaza every Sunday, ate street foods at the marketplace, listened to the raindrops and thunderclaps during storms, watched fireworks and street dances during the town's festival, and breathed in the summer scent. My childhood summer memories were truly the best. Story 93. Climb trees or explore abandoned buildings or building sites. We also had a garden, so we helped plant and care for fruit, vegetables, and other plants. I learned a lot. I played with the neighbor kids and our Smurf figurines in the garden. We simply cycled around. We usually wrapped up when the sun went down or when we felt hungry. Life was less complicated back then. Story 94. Walking down the railroad tracks near my house, playing in the woods, helping out on our farm, picking raspberries, and dealing with the fumes from Solvay, one of the worst pollution sites in the United States next door. Story 95. I ride my bicycle with anyone who will come. We find abandoned or burned out houses, forage, make up ghost stories, and get home before dark. Story 96. I would either be drawing, painting, gaming, or watching television. I am assuming we still have real television networks. Story 97. When I was 10 years old, in the summer, I was outside all day. I only went home to pick up sandwiches for lunch and dinner. Story 98. Playing outside with my friends, most likely riding our bicycles. Then we would probably move to the bottom floor hallway of our complex and sit and talk there. Eventually, one of us would go grab a pack of Uno cards or Skippo. Story 99. Outside, we had many parks and playing fields where I lived as a child. I would run home for a quick drink and a bite to eat, then go out again. Story 100. Going out with neighborhood friends. I live in a small town surrounded by nature. We often visit waterfalls or go hiking. It was so much fun when I was 10 years old. Story 101. Riding my bicycle, playing in the woods, building forts, swimming at the neighbor's pool. Making sure I am back by 5 p.m. for dinner. Story 102. Down the park with the kids from my grandmother's road, building dens, going back to my grandmother's for lunch, then back out until tea time when my mother got home from work, then home, bath, then bed. And do it all again tomorrow. Story 103. My parents used to get angry at me for being inside all day in the summer, so they would kick me out. I would go annoy my brother until he tied my scooter to his bicycle and left me at the library for a few hours. Probably that. Story 104. So many options. Riding my bike to the park to meet up with friends or going to the mall or to the movies. Collecting garbage pail kids from 7-Eleven. Getting a thrifty ice cream cone for 35 cents. On a hot day, I would set up a tent in the backyard with stuffed animals, a sleeping bag, and pillows, and stretch an extension cord to hook up a mini television out to the tent. Story 105. I was outside almost the whole day. My friends and I were building a small house, bringing children's dishes, various wooden pieces, and stones. We made a penthouse so that in the evening the local boys could knock it down while we went for dinner. Story 106. It's 1999. I'm on my annual road trip with my dad from Texas to his hometown in upstate New York. He would drive in 12-hour shifts while I navigated using his giant map book he kept behind the driver's seat or dozed, or forced him to listen to hour after hour of my burned CDs of Britney Spears, Destiny's Child, or the Backstreet Boys. One year, he even got a clunky little television for the trip that plugged into the cigarette lighter, cutting-edge technology for the time, but we could never get any channels to come in. He was always very frugal, so he usually just pulled over at rest stops to get a few hours of sleep, rather than get a motel for the night. We'd get McDonald's breakfast in the morning, a special treat as I wasn't usually up early enough and we rarely got fast food anyway. Then we'd find some interesting local place to stop and rest. One of them was Hungry Mother State Park in Virginia, where we had made a tradition of always stopping to swim in the lake after a waitress at a diner recommended it to us when we asked, "What's there to do here?" A few years before. One time, a few years before, I left my little brown toy pony, with felt-like fur and a long brown tail, in a gas station bathroom. I didn't realize until several hours farther down the interstate, but when I did, I buried my head in my hands and cried, sure that I'd never see my beloved toy again. I didn't even realize my father had silently made a U-turn until we pulled back up to the gas station. I ran inside, overjoyed to find my pony in the bathroom, right where I'd left him. Once we arrived, we'd stay with my father's mother, my Nana, a former violinist, spry for her age, and Italian in all the best ways. We'd spend our days visiting relatives, going out to dinner with his childhood friends on the coast of Connecticut, and visiting another friend who had a cabin and boat an hour's drive away on Lake George. He had a daughter 3 years older than me who became one of my best friends and whom I thought was the coolest person in the world at the time. We eventually lost touch, but I still think about those long summers we spent getting into trouble in Lake George Village. We'd go tubing, swimming in my cousin's above-ground pool, visiting my dad's childhood home and his father's gravesite, a man I unfortunately never got to meet as he died 2 years before I was born, and going to Blockbuster late at night to rent movies with my dad. I remember him relenting and letting me rent American Pie as long as he could fast forward through the webcam scene. Oh, and getting into trouble with my Nana for staying up half the night talking to my best friend back home long distance while racking up a bunch of charges on her phone bill, and then sleeping until noon the next day. I couldn't have known it then, but 2 years later would be the last time I took that trip with him, and 7 years after that, he'd be dead. Now my own daughter has to repeat my experience of hearing story after story about her amazing grandfather but never actually getting to meet him. Those trips were the core of my childhood, and it still hurts that he died before I was old enough and mature enough to truly thank him for all that he did. Story 107. Playing in the field, in the park, or in the garden with my friends. Riding my bicycle down the street. We would make up dances, watch movies, play board games, and use our imaginations. Good times. Story 108. Playing in the street, British bulldogs generally. Then to the park and later to the beach. Maybe a spot of fishing on the pier. Bliss. Story 109. It was a time when staying home was considered a punishment. First thing in the morning, we showed up unannounced at all of our friends' houses, negotiating with their parents to see if our friend could go outside to play. Once the group was assembled, we played soccer, recreated Mortal Kombat fights, and climbed anything that was climbable. Everything was new and exciting. We only went back home to eat and sleep. Story 110. Rode my bike with some friends, played football, the round one and the National Rugby League egg-shaped one. At the park, talked about the cute boy from school, and discussed the attractive guys from that boy band, movie, or TV show. Wrote letters to give to certain people when I saw them again. A nice mixture of activities. Story 111. Go around my neighborhood ringing all the kids' house bells to assemble the group and go play hide and seek. I have really fond memories from when there were about 20 kids of the same age living on the same street, and we would hang out every day after school. Story 112. Building forts out of straw bales, cycling to the beach, just relaxing with my friends, shooting targets with our air rifles, foraging, looking for spent shells down the bombing range, sneaking into the local holiday camps and spending the day using the pool and arcades, teasing the girls. Story 113. Wake up slightly early because I am 10 and excited. Annoy parents and end up waking them as well if they are on holiday and sleeping in. Not allowed to watch television or play Xbox until after lunch, so just pace around the house, play with Lego, read books, and so on. After lunch is Xbox time, or maybe games on the computer. Then in the evening, play cricket with friends. Dinner, then books and sleep. Story 114. Probably grabbing my friends, jumping on our bicycles, and heading down to the local river to go fishing. Story 115. Playing in the streets of Brooklyn, playing hopscotch, selzy, jump rope, and roller skating. What I would not give to go back there even for one day. Story 116. Morning. Making breakfast and watching television. Late morning into afternoon. Bike riding with friends. Mid-afternoon. Tag and kickball in the park. Early evening. Video games and television. The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Friends, Seinfeld lineup. Late evening movie at home with some popcorn. Story 117. Playing with my friends in our garden, going to the store to buy ice cream, watching television, and painting. Story 118. Vacation Bible school in the morning, eat lunch when I get home, and then run out the door to go hang out with my friends down the street. Story 119. I used to ride my bicycle everywhere to find enough children for a big football game. We played in an empty trailer park lot until the sun went down. Story 120. I am probably playing outside with my friends, feeling the summer wind beneath the tree in the afternoon, and making lemonade. I miss those times. Story 121. Listening to the radio, recording myself singing, making fake commercials and talk shows, reading comics, swinging in the park, eating sandwiches with chips while drinking sugary Kool-Aid, playing with siblings and friends, having dinner with family and talking about everything, taking a shower and going to bed dreaming about how fun my summer is so far. Story 122. Playing outside with friends, some total overdose on dad's old laptop, and maybe watching some television before falling asleep. Story 123. Nerf war with the kids in the neighborhood and afterwards some Call of Duty Black Ops or Minecraft on the Xbox 360. Story 124. No smartphones when I was 10. We went out to the beach and hung around the dunes. We were on the street with friends and neighbors. We went to each and every parent's house to ask for candy. We went to town by ourselves. We did some boating on the canal. We went to the swimming pool. We had to be home at 8. That sort of thing. Story 125. Summers were spent either away on holiday, playing outside, playing in the back garden, playing board games, or watching television. Sometimes we would go to the local swimming pool or watch movies. Story 126. Going swimming with my neighbors at the local pool all afternoon, then coming home to eat dinner, and then running back outside to play with the neighborhood kids some more. Story 127. Swimming, sleepovers, journaling, reading magazines, drinking a lot of soda, eating candy and popcorn, playing outside, riding bikes, jumping on the trampoline with the sprinkler under it, talking on the phone all night. If I was at my grandparents' house, I played Paperboy and Tetris on the old Nintendo, or played pool alone or with my grandfather. Walking to the store to get a treat, probably a Dr. Pepper. At my dad's house, I went fishing, hunting, or being mischievous with my little sister. At my older sister's, I watched her queer movie collection and was amazed. Summer reading projects and sleeping in. Story 128. Catching frogs and snapping turtles for hours, riding my bike, hanging out with the dog or pony, and annoying my family. I was an only child. Story 129. Exploring an abandoned quarry to find interesting debris and carefully climbing the quarry walls. Story 130. I guess I might go outside. I've always loved to walk around my place during vacation. Sometimes I find interesting places that I have never been to. Story 131. Probably talking to that nice old man with the white van that has rusted, free candy, scribbled on the side. Billy talked to an older man and got a free puppy. I might not be Billy, but free candy is free candy. Story 132. Up early. Both parents at work. I just mess around in the backyard. Maybe go see what Kenny is up to. Sometimes we play canasta for hours. He is so much better than I am in everything. The playground at our school has a summer program of arts and crafts and sports like stick hockey. I could stay there until 5 p.m. when they closed. Other days, I would grab my bike and just head out and ride until I ran into someone I knew. In 6th grade, there were 2 guys from my school who also had working parents, and we would just sit around and talk. Both of them were in band, which was kind of nerdy, and they didn't follow the same class times that I did, so we kind of lost touch. By 12th grade, I was so bored with everything and just wanted to move away. No plans. Both of these boys were at the top of the class and had been accepted at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was so jealous and ashamed to this day. I was at the bottom of the class, and my parents never uttered the word college. At least I read The Great Gatsby, The Scarlet Letter, and Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some are more equal. Story 133. My best friend was very creative. Often, we would play spy and watch people all over the neighborhood. Then we would pretend something was going to happen to them and that we had to save them, or we would get caught spying. We were pretty good at it too. The things we knew about people in town were shocking. Story 134. Weekday. Play scheme. They had 2 arcade video games the year I was 10, and we played those until we ran out of cash. We drank a lot of weak orange squash, ate party rings, made macrame potholders, and ran about shrieking. Weekend. Football in the alley, walking in the woods, walking in the fields. Reading. Going to jumble sales to look for more books. Story 135. Riding bicycles. Playing in a neighborhood child's backyard. Just hanging out on my front steps hoping the cute girl who lives down the street walks by. Story 136. We always had a risk game going in the garage. My parents left the car in the driveway so games might last several days. Story 137. Riding bikes with my friends, drinking Kirk's lemonade, and swimming at the beach. Perfect Australian summer. Story 138. Building dens in the local wooded area with wooden pallets from the local pottery factory. Climbing every tree possible in the local churchyard. Playing 60-60, also known as hide and seek, in the churchyard. Going down to the nature reserve and beyond to the train bridge so we could stand on the bridge and wave at the train drivers. God, we were innocent back then. We came home when my friend's mother would loudly whistle for us. Honestly, we could hear her from over a mile away. He would whistle back, and then we would start to head home from wherever we were. Story 139. Catching grasshoppers and placing them on spider webs for spiders to eat. Also, when spiders get big, throw 2 into a cup and make them fight until only one survives. Story 140. First things first, riding my bike to find a good stick. Steed and sword were crucial to survival in those bloody days of yore. The gods baffled us with McGroff the crime dog. Pokemon swept the lands. The minstrels wailed songs of angst at the monarchy. They wore sullied garb, grungy and plaid. Lord McHammer communed with the divine and became untouchable. Story 141. Eat sour cream and onion Pringles, watch Jerry Springer and Maury with my younger sisters, sneak an icy juicy, then call my friends to meet me at McDonald's where we will play Pokemon cards. Story 142. Doing drawings, playing cricket with friends, watching cartoons, having snacks with all friends, taking a small nap, and again in the evening going out to play cricket, hide and seek, riding bicycles, exchanging bicycles with each other in the group of friends. Those golden days were just wonderful. Story 143. Playing on the ZX Spectrum indoors with the curtains closed to avoid screen glare, listening to 1980's The Cure, while my parents called up to tell me to go outside and play in the sun. Story 144. Out playing, hiding, cycling, and playing football in the park. Mucking about on the old bomb sites near my home. That's what I did. Story 145. Swinging axes, making a fire, playing rough games, singing campfire songs, soaping up a tarp, and making our own downhill slide. Oh, the joy of summer scout camp. And yes, even these days, the kids have to hand in their phones when they arrive. 2 weeks of no electronics does them well, even if some of them sound like you are trying to murder them just for saying they cannot have their phone. Story 146. At home alone with my sister, who is 2 years older, probably making some cake concoction in the microwave while my parents are at work. Then rushing to clean up the house before they get home. Story 147. Bikes, go into the woods and build wood forts with fallen logs, swimming, playground, corner store and candy. Go for a walk in the park. Story 148. In the late 1980s, I was most likely helping clean out the grain bins for the upcoming harvest, cutting the lawn on a riding mower, and doing other farm work. We had a Honda tricycle, so I would ride that around too. I spent time watching daytime television or renting and playing Nintendo games. Story 149. My sister would have been a couple of months old, so I would be walking her around in her stroller. When I was not doing that, I was hanging out with my friend and our sisters playing with Barbies and makeup. Story 150. God, I take my pocket money, go to the children's board game club, and play Magic. The Gathering with my friends. The best times. I adore board games. Story 151. Trying to build a treehouse on the ground with branches and leaves. Falling off my bike going down the big hill for the 11th time. Chasing the other kids around with dead bugs. Stealing drinks of water from the water hose behind the abandoned house up the street. Running in and out of the house 20 times in the first hour and being told not to come back inside or I will be locked out all night. Story 152. I would be out in the woods all day, swimming in the creek if it is hot, and playing in the canyon if it is not bad. Story 153. In 1993, I waited until my parents were distracted enough to not notice me leaving the yard. I went to hang out with all my friends at the community center across the street from my house. Eventually, my parents would notice I was gone, get angry, and sometimes punish me. I would sit in my room and draw or listen to my portable music player. I played with Pogs or my Ninja Turtle action figures. I built a bunch of crazy Hot Wheels tracks with loop-the-loops and exciting jumps. I played my handheld gaming device. Then I would sneak out again after they fell asleep. Story 154. Don't romanticize it too much. My parents did not allow me to go out unattended, so I either watched television or read books. I read a lot of books. I guess it was better than scrolling, but I was very bored. Story 155. At 10, I had aged out of Barbies but was not yet fully interested in boys. I probably would have read a book in the morning and then headed out on my bike. As you all are well aware, heading out on a bike could mean any manner of shenanigans. Story 156. Reading, playing with various toys, going to the beach, riding a bicycle in town, playing PlayStation Portable at a friend's house, setting off firecrackers and dog feces and shooting at it with BB guns. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.